Hi, today I'm recording from Sunny Hall. It's a beautiful day, like the showgrounds here. Welcome to History with Holly. Today's book is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This is really worth a read. I listened to the audio book, which is read by Michelle herself, and that really enhances the quality of the book, I think. We actually did it for my book club, and one of the reasons I wanted to make a video about it was because of some of the conversations that it brought up at book club, and particularly with other women and other mothers that I came across. Oh, fly. So the thing that really was part of the conversations was just about women and the way that even though it's 2020 and women's liberation and equal pay and all that stuff is we're working on it, the amount of extra burden women still carry in the household, in child raising, and in the burden of the family. And really, it was fascinating listening to Michelle's account of her own childhood and life, college, and her life before she met Barack was very interesting. And she was a lawyer, a very successful one. But as his political career took off, and they had their two young girls, of course, just listening to her struggles of how to make that balance work, because he was a senator and he was away a lot long before he was president. You know, he was in politics for a long time, and he was traveling and home on the weekends, that sort of thing, and she had to balance her job with all the parenting. And it was just fascinating listening to her struggles with, once he did become a presidential candidate, her having to give up her job in the end. Like, she was there so little, she didn't feel it was fair for them to continue to employ her because she just wasn't doing the job. And, you know, that was really tough, but it's what she had to do to keep her family together. And it has sparked so many conversations for me with women who tell their stories, from the mum at preschool who told me about her husband being incredibly depressed for years and years, and how she never knew whether he'd be alive when she came home, and he only spent dinner time with her kids. Or the women at book club who told me about, the women in their 60s at book club who told me about how when they were kids and at high school, the conversation about whether they would go to uni or not was not even a conversation, because, well, it was a tough conversation because women didn't do that. You know, women just got married. And how much that changed. And one of the fascinating things from book club was that there was one woman there who's in her mid-60s, and then two other women who are in their early 50s. And their experiences, even though they're only about 10 years apart in age, were so radically different, because the women in their 50s, were of that age group where Gough Whitlam had come in. So Gough Whitlam was Prime Minister from 1972 to 1975. And during that time he installed Medicare, but also he installed free university. And so that, as well as obviously changes in attitudes about women in the 70s, women's liberation happened at that time, the big women's liberation movement happened at that time. But those two things, that period, that vital period from sort of 1970, 1980, meant that the younger women in their 50s at book club never had that conversation with their parents. You know, if they wanted to go to uni, they went to uni. And certainly me, in my 30s, I was expected I'd go to uni. You know, like, if you're academic these days, you go to uni. But just that, the way that it's brought up conversations for me about women, and the way that they still bear the burden of the majority of housework. They still have unequal superannuation. They still radically overrepresent men in stay-at-home parents. And that's not a bad thing for everyone. But it is interesting. We listened to Annabelle Crabb's, she's written a book called The Wife Drought, which I'll put a link to at the bottom of this video, because I think it's something that I now want to read, and it's definitely something that's along the lines of this theme. But my husband and I listened to her quarterly essay, which is a bit of a summary of the book, and she talked about how by not allowing men to take on these roles, or by not expecting men to take on these roles, we're actually detracting from fathers. Like, we're actually taking away. So she talks a lot about politicians and how politicians don't get asked. Male politicians never get asked about how they balance family and work, but female politicians, that's the only thing they get asked. And she said, well, like, we're actually detracting from these men. They want to be, young fathers. They want to be there for their kids. They want to work flexibly. They want to have time with their children, and workplaces aren't allowing that. And how there's so much that needs to change there. So yes, I'll put a link, obviously, as I always do, to Becoming, the book I'm discussing by Michelle Obama. I'll also put a link to The Wife Drought by Annabelle Crabb, if any of you would like to read that. And please comment and subscribe, and I'd love to chat to you more on this. Thanks. See ya.